Namaste and greetings. I, Dr. Sauravi Himire, Research and Communication Associate at IMPRI, Impact and Policy Research Institute, Prabhav Evam Niti Anusandhan Sansthan, Nai Delhi, extend my warmest welcome to you all to IMPRI Web Policy Learning. We are gathered today for the last day of our 3-day online certificate training program on understanding recurring heat waves, risk, impact, and the way forward for resilience. This training course is organized by National Institute of Disaster Management, or NIDM, Ministry of Home Affairs, and IMPRI's Center for Environment, Climate Change, and Sustainable Development, or CECCSD, Impact and Policy Research Institute. The patron for the program is Shri Taj Hassan, IPS, Executive Director, NIDM, New Delhi. Our convener and moderator is Shri Tikender Singh Panwar, former Deputy Mayor, Shimla, and Senior Fellow, IMPRI. Our conveners are Professor Anil Gupta, Head of ECDRM, NIDM, New Delhi, Dr. Simi Mehta, CEO and Editorial Director, IMPRI, and Dr. Soumyadev Chattopadhyay, Associate Professor, Vishwabharati Shanti Niketan, Visiting Senior Fellow, IMPRI, New Delhi. This course will be conducted by various expert resource persons comprising eminent academicians, journalists, senior researchers, and policy practitioners. The distinguished resource persons have great experience gained in the field along with their expertise. Our experts for today's course are Dr. May Matthew, Dr. Manu Gupta, and Dr. Pooja Paswan. The organizing team consists of Fatima Amin and Dr. Gopal Verma, NIDM, Dr. Sauravi Himire, Utkarsh Dwivedi, and Diya Goswami, IMPRI. We are very grateful to the NIDM team, and particularly Professor Anil K. Gupta and his team, and Tikender Panwarji for spearheading this timely training course on the important issue of heat waves and its impact. I welcome all of you for this enlightening deliberation, and thank you for being interested and putting your time, energy, and efforts in understanding emerging issues concerning the impacts of policies in disaster management and helping us to bring together the practitioners and participants through this course, which we believe will lead to a very fruitful outcome. Before we start today's session, I would like to remind the housekeeping announcements once again. Please join the meeting on time. There will be Q&A session after each presentation. Please share a question on the Q&A box. The questions must not be posted as an anonymous attendee, and ensure that the questions are precise. And kindly refrain from making any general comments in the question to save time. Now, without any further ado, let us start our first session of today's program. Our first distinguished expert is Dr. May Matthew. Dr. May Matthew is the founder trustee and chief planner, Center for Environmental Efficiency, Kochi. We welcome you, ma'am. Please take over the session.
Morning to.
Yes, ma'am. Welcome, ma'am.
I can start.
Sure, ma'am.
Yeah. Very good morning to the organizers, especially NIDM and IMPRI, and also the delegates who are attending from the different parts of India. I'm really happy to share my thought process, which turned to a research and later it turned to an NGO activity to further do the research and development activities with respect to the seed thoughts which I had in mind. That was it's a long history of 30 decades of thought process. Again, it turned to research, then after that, research and development. I'll start screen share now.
Yes, it's on now. Please go.
Yeah. 1 minute. My topic of presentation is new normalization, India to become a role model country, strengths and strategies. Now, I have represented a graph with respect to my idea about the world, how it is going. And this is supported by research work across the world, especially human development reports of UNDP, as well as biocapacity and ecological footprint concepts and calculations of Global Footprint Network. Global Footprint Network is an NGO, California-based NGO, and which is headed by Dr. Mathis Wackernagel. And he got PhD for his footprint calculations, and later he started an NGO. And every year he is publishing national footprint and non-national footprint accounts every year based on UN data, because UN data, usually it is getting delayed to do the calculations. So he's doing it on his own with some statistical methodology, and every year he's publishing it. That is the Global Footprint Network efforts. And UNDP, as all of us know, it is an effort that is HDR reports. They are publishing that from 1980, I think 85 onwards, they are publishing HDR reports. And in that, human development reports and the factors considered in human development reports are considered. And based on these three things, Center for Environmental Efficiency, or the founder trustee myself, has started combining these two to form environmental efficiency and carrying capacity. And this is based on these thought process only I came to this graph. This is only a conceptual graph. And what I feel is, as per the Global Footprint Network calculations, from 1960s onwards, our humanities ecological footprint, that means what is our consumption, total consumption is exceeding the biocapacity of the earth from the 1960s. So far, water progression, that means till 1960s, we were definitely having progress, because earth was absorbing all the consumption related activities, that means emissions and all. Earth was having enough regenerative capacity. After that, Earth started declining. Their regenerative capacity became below the world footprint or global footprints calculations, so that there were emissions, and these emissions were causing heat in the atmosphere, which is turning to this heat is turning to climate change. And without our knowing itself, from 1960s onwards, it is slowly declining of Earth's total performance, because climate is changing. And after that, this is so far, that is till 1960s, it is a progression which was taking place. And after that, a kind of regression is taking place. Now it is our requirement to take it to the new normalization with a progressive path, which is supported by what I say is, so far we are going with a linear economic pattern, and we have to turn to circular economic pattern, for which E and CC theories are helpful. And this is a just coincidence. Today is the Earth Overshoot Day, as per the calculation of Dr. Mathis Wackernagel's Global Footprint Network calculation. This year in 22, today, that means 28th of July is the Earth Overshoot Day. That means this year's complete regenerative capacity of the Earth is considered. By this date, we have exhausted it. And after that, what all activities, human activities are coming, it's all coming as externalities. Earth is no more able to absorb or sequestrate the emissions or the heat. So that, and this is just a coincidence that is today has coincided with our program. And from 1960s onwards, it's diminishing. The ecological footprint is on a higher side and overshoot is going up. And this is also another calculation of global footprint network. That this is one of the interesting calculation. And for the world, what we are consuming is 1.7 Earth or 1.7, exactly speaking 1.7 Earth as per the 2022 calculations. While everyone on Earth is living like an American, we need 5 Earth. Everyone on Earth is living like a Russian, we need 3.4 Earth. See, and coming all the countries listed here, it's they are all exceeding the Earth's regenerative capacity based on their consumption pattern and their lifestyle, while India is consuming only 0.7 Earth. That means it's a strength. India's consumption trends or consumption patterns are very minimal. So what all achievements we are making based on the minimum amount of footprint. Now coming back to UNDP's global footprint, UNDP's HDI calculations for the year 2020, we can see that the world average is 0.731 HDI. Developed countries 0.898, India 0.645, while least developed countries average is 0.538. That means our standard of living is still below the world average. World average is 0.731, while India's standard of living is 0.645, slightly above these developed countries, while developed countries are having 0.898. So that is the weakness, or India has to progress in the human development scenario. Again, I will tell you, HDI, that means Human Development Index, consists of health, education, and income till 2010. After that, HDI, UNDP has that is modified the HDI calculations by taking the inequality dimension, IHDI. That means the main factors of human development are, as per the HDI, that means human development, UNDP now is health, education, income, and inequality or equity included human development is the thing after 2010. From 2010, human development reports onwards, this IHDA is published. And in that, again, we are coming to the world developed countries, India and least developed countries. We can see that there are losses. That IHDA is calculated by calculating the inequality dimension, and as percentage is reduced from the HDI to get the IHDI. That means overall world average 20.4% is lost due to inequality. Actually, IHDA is the real human development, while HDI is the hypothetical human development. And the overall our world average 20.4% is lost due to inequality. And for the developed countries, only 10.9%, while India is 26.4% is lost. Our human development achievements are lost by 26.4%, and it is nearer to least developed countries. So India has to concentrate on inequality dimension or equity included human development India has to attain. And now coming back to EE and CC, environmental efficiency and carrying capacity theories, which I have formed during my PhD dissertation. And after that, in 2013, I am continuing it with my R&D activities in the platform of Center for Environmental Efficiency. And we are doing a work, even though it is still in the infancy stage, I can say, but the theory, it is a highly egalitarian theory which can be taken up for the world to attain a better world. That means we have to attain a normalized path. For that, these theories are useful. And in that, what is happening is the three factors are considered: human development, ecological footprint, and biocapacity. And Earth will be happy when the human development is more and the ecological footprint is coming less. That means HD by EFP or IHD by EFP achievements are becoming less. That means losses are to be contained. Human development is not to be compromised. So what is the losses between ecological footprint and human development? Those are to be contained. Then Earth will be happy. If the human development and ecological footprint less, Earth will be happy. Otherwise, Earth is sad and Earth is crying. Nowadays, Earth is crying because of our overshoots. This is formed as part of environmental efficiency theory depicted as a tree. That means a tree bottom, that base, what we have, the base is biocapacity, while what we are taking is ecological footprint, and what we are achieving is human development. And this is a balanced human development that is in forms of health, education, and income. And these are the calculations which I made, a GIF animation which I made, environmental efficiency and carrying capacity calculations. And for some of the countries, and what I found that the environmental efficiency of India is very high, because with respect to the consumption, what India is gaining is very high, 6.03, and Georgia 5.63, while for the world average is 2.5. That means that is environmental efficiency is 2.5, while for countries like USA and all, it is very low, 1.28, and Australia 1.06. That means those countries which are in the higher echelons of development, they are not having high environmental efficiency, and many of the countries are not having enough carrying capacity. Carrying capacity is the biocapacity divided by ecological footprint. So what we have, so it is all coming below 1, at least it should be 1. In the Russia, in this case, in 2013, it is carrying capacity is more, that their biocapacity is more than their ecological footprint. And now these are the calculations which I mentioned at the global level. But this has got a very good applications from the global to local. For any system, we can use this output by input approach. That means this is only arithmetical calculations at the global level, which is a concept for the humanity to thrive, the humanity to progress. So at the global level, we have taken health, education, income, and inequality or equity. I can say that the HDR report says inequality, adjusted human development. I say that equity, that means justified equality is equity. Also, the global footprint network take land, energy, and productivity. These three things they have combined, and they are making in terms of global hectares. That means land, what is the amount of land, farmland or forest land, all these things are considered. And also the energy, if you are making fossil fuel emissions, what is the energy required for carbon sequestration? They have included in that. And also the productivity, suppose our own land in India or in Kerala is unproductive or less productive, when it's considered into global hectares, that is their unit, then it will be diminishing. Suppose I have 100 hectares of land which is underperforming, and if it is converted into global hectares, it will be sometimes 25 hectares. So these three, it's an excellent way of input calculations. That means the total consumption calculations, land, energy, and productivity is combined by global footprint network. So it was helpful for me to formulate these concepts. That is it at the global level. So coming back to globe, nation, state, city, community, family, and even personal level, we can take these theories, the different applications level, and to the local level, what we have to consider our wellness rather than health. In the health calculation, UNDP is calculating life expectancy at birth. But what I say is at the local level, we have to see the wellness of the community, whether there is no point in living for a long period of time under morbidity. So wellness, again, skillfulness, we have to have attained different skills. Then our mind will be happy, and also we will be getting income. And also it is all related, wellness, skillfulness, and profitability. These three are interrelated. And also, if one person alone is attaining all these things in the community and the rest are in the underprivileged and they are remaining low, that means there is no meaning. We have to take our human beings around us also to a level, then only we can enjoy our achievements. So equity is to be considered, and again land, energy, and productivity. Again, these are the application levels. Now again, I improvised this environmental efficiency theory with intra-generational sustainability. Environmental efficiency theory is improvised as May value. The value of the word May stands for wish, prayer, and hope, and this is intra-generational. Within the generation, what is the sustainability? And in this, at the national level or global level, we have got the calculations, health, then education, income, then ecological footprint, inequality. All these things are considered and form an index. That is the May value. And this is at city level, I will explain, or at the global level, we are explaining. That means the earth is considered as a machine. So we are having spare capacity. The machine to become efficient, they have to produce what is optimum production should be there. And also the losses in the form of emissions to be reduced. So we have to reduce what is the losses. Then again, ecological footprint is the input, and output is IHDI, or known as equity, inequality adjusted human development, or equity included human development. That means wellness, skill development, income, and equity. All these things are considered. IHD by EFP is again coined the name as May value. Again, intergenerational sustainability we have calculated. That is, the carrying capacity is again improvised as ton value. Ton value means biocapacity is here in one wing of one arm of the balance, and the other is ecological footprint. And the ecological footprint is more high. That means if it is balanced, that means it will be 0. If ton value positive, that means it is good. That means Earth is having enough capacity. Ton value negative means it is bad, because Earth is overshooting. So in order to get acquainted with, in order to make the people understand about it, we have formulated this ton value diagram. That means GIF map. Now, coming back to India. India's urbanization, as per the UN population division, it is predicted as 40% by 2030. While for the world, it is 60%. And at present, we are after the 2011 census, we are having only 31.16%. That means only very majority of the people are rural, and only very few are urban. That is, after 100 people, 31 people are urban, while the rest of the people are rural. That is the thing which make the India backwards. We have to concentrate on urbanization. Again, so see the kind of urbanization in India, that is, I am taken from 2001 and 2011 calculations, And there are three type of cities: Tier 1 cities, Tier 2 cities, Tier 3 cities. Tier 1 is a mega urban agglomerations like Delhi, Bombay, Calcutta, Chennai, Bangalore, etc., which are having population above 4 million. And Tier 2 cities are 1 to 4 million. And again, Tier cities are 0.1 to 1 million. That is as per the census. I think they have these somehow urbanization reports or some place it is this kind of classification is there. And in that, in the 2001, there are 7 mega urban agglomerations with the population they carry 65 million, and average population load, that means 65 divided by 7, it is coming to 9.3. And similarly, average population Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities of 1.5 and 0.2. And we are calculating the average population load, and these kind of 9 numbers are there. So we are taking 9 numbers, again Tier 1 cities, again Tier 2 cities. That is in 2011, it is 44, and in Tier 3 cities are 415. That means if you are taking the average population load, that means it is we can see that the population increase has taken place in Tier 1 cities. That means Tier 1 cities, that means 0.7 million average population is coming to the Tier 1 cities. That big cities are becoming bigger and bigger every day, while Tier 2 cities and 3 cities are carrying only minimum people. That means urbanization is not taking place in Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities. Yes, 2 extreme cases of urbanization is happening in India. That is, mega urban agglomerations are growing at a fast rate, resulting in overcrowding, overloading of infrastructure, resulting in chaos. Because if you are taking this HD by EFP calculation of these mega urban agglomerations, we can make sure that this is at a lower, that is our environment efficiency calculations. If you are taking for the mega urban agglomerations, that is compared to the input is small. That's what I imagine. But in other cases, many small and medium urban centers are not attaining economic momentum due to decreased profitability and less job opportunities. Other than Tier 1 cities, all other cities are not gaining economic momentum. This is as per the 2011 calculations. And after that, changes might have taken place because of the JNURM and smart cities programs. We will see next census comes, only we can evaluate whether urbanization is going to the lower cities. Again, urban and rural productivity, because the McKinsey Global Institute's economical model and the urbanization prospects, these figures I have got. And I can see that per capita urban productivity to rural productivity is also the gap increasing. That means the productivity of the urban people are, that is urban and rural productivity gap is increasing. That is, more people are living in rural areas, so that what all productivity is there, it is getting divided and they are getting less income, while urban people are getting, that means urban and rural productivity gap is increasing. So that is also not a good trend. That means more we have to encourage urbanization so that more people will be able to get the benefits of cities. Now coming to ENCC, there are different methods by which we can calculate the ENCC, environmental efficiency and carrying capacity. We can make even ENCC maps at a city level, which I succeeded for my PhD dissertation. You can go through my website, and in the publications it has been pointed so that you can have a look at it, how an RS and GIS platform, by identifying mutually exclusive identifying proxy indicators in RS and GS platform, which I will be explaining. And One method is, this is the most systematic way by taking the HDI as well as UNDP calculations, which they follow. So we can make the E and CC calculations. Again, there is a shortcut methods like for each cities in India as part of the smart cities programs. Just identify some mutually exclusive indicators which are contributing to health, education, income, inequality or equity, and also ecological footprint, or energy is also included in that, land also included in that. So we can take by taking mutually exclusive indicators and aggregating it. We can aggregate in the form of, by calculating it, there is a method by which I know that it can be aggregated. So based on that, we can calculate the performance of cities. We can make comparison of cities. And this one already explained, and I will be explaining the proxy indicators which at a city level. Proxy indicators which I used for the evaluation of environmental efficiency in city level. That means I divided the city study area into different grids, 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer. Then I have calculated the following factors. That means land utility. So the concept is that individual ownership to common ownership based on the ownership of the land or utility. For an apartment building, land utility is more. For a government building, land utility is more. For a public spaces, land utility is more because it is having common ownership. So common ownership means HD, so there is a likely chance of HD enhancement. And again, accessibility. Accessibility means walking, cycling, and mass transport is to be encouraged. That means this has got two functions. The numerator as well as the denominator, this accessibility has function. That means HD increases because many of the human development centers are accessible to more number of people. And again, EFP reduces because if once it is nearby, or it is available with, if it is accessible by mass transport system, EFP reduces so that it has got an alpha square function. Then per capita built up. That means discourage horizontal development for cities. We cannot imagine of horizontal development anymore. We have to discourage horizontal development and go vertical. High-rise buildings are to be encouraged in order to reduce per capita built-up area. Again, ecosystem disturbance factor, delta I have used. That means if you are referring my thesis report, how I have taken, because it will take some time how to explain this 1 by delta function is got. That means this is coming again in the denominator. That means the concept is that if you are disturbing an ecosystem or in the land, disturb at the maximum so that we will be getting maximum output from the system in the form of secondary and tertiary and urban activities. If it are disturbing, if you are not, otherwise don't disturb, ecosystem integrity is to be maintained. There are so many practical applications of E and CC gradation maps, by which we can take objective decisions, like we can identify the identification of natural resources and conservation zone, forest, agriculture, mangrove, then prioritization of infrastructure projects, because we have to depend on the environmental efficiency, we can determine whether we should give such an infrastructure in such places. Then identification of high density zones with high FAR. Then for transferable development right management, because TDR sending and receiving areas we can find out. And for effective property taxation and also vacant land and vacant building taxation. So what I say is property taxation is on the other side, that is it is entirely reversed. It has to be reversed, because people who are staying at convenient locations with creating less ecological footprint and maximum human development, they should be encouraged. And those people opting for that. Of course, we cannot encourage people who are having high built-up areas. That means very huge palatial bungalows in environmentally efficient areas. That should be overtaxed. But the reasonable abodes in convenient locations, they should be given less tax so that people have a tendency to come and stay near the metro stations, metro route, or something like that, so that people, it's an encouragement. If Kerala, this reverse thing is happening. So what is happening is the urban sprawl is happening in a very, very dangerous way. People are going away because of the less tax in rural areas. At the same time, government is encouraging, that means infrastructure projects in rural areas. So urban sprawl is happening. Our ecosystem integrity is losing. So it is going at a different, very dangerous situation. Identify zones for land reclamation, and it is a yardstick for fair value fixation. Then property taxation, things, policies which are not against environmental efficiency theories, that the one I mentioned, property taxation, it's on the other side. Then in Kerala, discouraging metropolitization, it is happening because even though Kochi is declared as a tier 1, that means a million plus city in 2000, in 1991 itself, there is no metropolitan planning authority is constituted. They are telling that DPC is better than MPC. MPC is not constituted. And discouraging high rises, non-implementation of TDR, lack of prospective plans, and lack of vacant land policy, and discouraging development authorities. So after development 1991, that means 74th Constitutional Amendment Act, that is, development authority is not at all giving good contributions. That means they are unable to give good contribution till what, from 1976 to 1991, they are performing excellent way of performance they had, and now they are unable to do it because of the 74th and 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act. So that is not correct. Development authorities are the ones who are making environmental efficiency enhancement in the form of detailed town planning schemes, which Kochi has 23 detailed town planning schemes till 1991. After that, 0. Concepts contributing to HD by EFP and enhancement. HD increases and EFP reduces. That is the compact cities. This is the satellite imagery of the Hong Kong. Just like that I show. And here the land utility, the proxy indicators which I have identified, land utility is more, accessibility is also more, and this has got a very good function, square function. And per capita built up less, then contained urbanization should take place, and losses less, business and local economy flourish because of the economies of scale. Policy formulation, that means we can make effective policies with us using this environmental efficiency seed thought. That means to encourage equitable human development with the least ecological footprint, and limit the city consumption within biocapacity of the supporting region, and which results should result in undisturbed and high integrity ecosystems. And these are the two things which I have proposed for the COP26 Glasgow summit. I haven't gone to Glasgow, but I just made a blog and tagged Glasgow summit. At least someone might have noticed. This is a future Earth, a sustainable Earth scenario. In that, what happens is, this is the one page of second chapter 2 of my thesis report. In these different countries, HDI and EFPA are plotted. And from this, what I found is there is a horizontal portion, there is a slanting portion, there is a vertical portion. And I have named this a gray zone country. These countries are gray zone countries, green zone countries, and red zone countries. Red zone countries are consuming a lot in the form of environment, ecological footprint. They are utilizing the biocapacity of the gray zone countries. That means they are underdeveloped, they are overdeveloped, and overconsumption they are. And these are green zone countries are reasonably found to be good because their consumption and their output is sometimes proportional. So what I suggest is, instead of carbon trading is not very, very successful, I feel, as per my reading. So what I feel is, countries have to twin, because America has to twin with a country in Central African Republic or some place which are underdeveloped, and give human development in the form of health, education, and income, and take their biocapacity in paper so that this can be averaged, so that once these two countries are averaged, definitely they will go to green zone countries. So what happens, this future urban sustainable earth scenario, if all are doing like this, our map will be like this. That is ecological footprint, and HDA mapping will be something like a circular in form. This is the curvilinear scatter diagram turns to a circular one. So this is the future sustainable urban sustainable earth scenario. Not only earth, it should be, can be taken from the global to local, because at the world, that means at UN level we can do. Then again, India can take this strategy between states, and also Kerala can take this strategy between districts or between cities, or India can take between cities. So this kind of pairing and sharing, if it is done, we can say that they are ethically correct. Otherwise, somebody is grabbing somebody's resources and attaining and enjoying human development, it is unethical. And this is the, again, one more thing. One is the biocapacity trading, and the other one is sustainable earth scenario. Instead of concentrating in different way, like 17 sustainable development goals, just to concentrate on sustainable goal 11, sustainable cities and communities with the E and CC theories. So what happens? All the other goals are coming under sustainable SDG 11. That means health is coming SDGs 1, 2, 3, 6. Education is SDG 4. Income is SDG 8 and 9. Inequality is SDGs 5 and 10. And also footprint, SDGs 7, 12, and 14, and 15, and 13, 16, and 17. These are the SDGs which can happen. That's international conferences and things like that. It can happen in cities, so that all the SDGs can be summarized under one SDG, that is SDG 11, that is some other SDG. So at a global level, national level, and also state level, just concentrate on sustainable cities. That is the only panacea to retrieve our receding world. We have to take it. We have to get the new normalization. So whatever I said, the same thing: sustainable cities and communities, then biocapacity trading in human development. And this is the innovative strategy from the Indian land. So India is capable of, India has got enough strength to take it as a the model, role model country with these strategies, so that the entire world will look into, and everybody will start mimicking, or they will start doing that. That is, we have to maintain our self-respect. That means we are saying that we don't want anybody's biocapacity. We will share with some other country, or within India itself, we can, between states, we can do these kind of practices. For further readings and updates, please follow www.centerforenvironmentalefficiency.org. And we have a Facebook, Instagram, and Medium pages. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Matthew, for this enlightening presentation on environmental efficiency. Now I would request Tikender ji to add some words on ma'am's presentation.
It was really a very comprehensive presentation, and some of the new nuances, dynamics that Dr. Matthew has brought are very interesting. But Dr. Matthew, tell me how, because you have actually mentioned about the carrying capacity. So, I mean, carrying capacity of a particular city. And the second point that you've made is, that we require more urbanization. The city people should migrate more to the urban centers. Whereas we are also witnessing the kind of unsustainable urbanization that is happening. And, this new dialogue and new discussion that is taking place is that, sustain the rural, the hinterland of the country, because urbanization is not paying the dividends, and the kind of gap, the kind of inequity that is existing in urban areas. So why do you still suggest that people should migrate to the cities? And the first one, don't you think? I mean, that's more to do with the Malthusian understanding of the carrying capacity. I mean, how does population? I mean, so where where we rely more basis on people than kind of policy framework that is required. So yeah, and maybe then we can take some questions from participants. But overall, thank you so much for bringing out this.
This is the new theory of carrying capacity, because I remember there was a study by Ministry of Environment, that Government of India, and so many universities and institutions and NIRI and all those people joined together. They were trying to make an carrying capacity study for Kochi area, Greater Kochi area. This has happened some 20-25 years ago. I was going through that. I could find that we cannot make any idea or any meaning for such a study, because carrying capacity means at a global level we have to think, because I have got so much of resources in my hinterland. If it is converted to global hectares, then I'll be of some significance at the international level, where my that means my sustainability can be worked out in economic terms also. So BC by EFP is a very effective, that is, these kind of calculations of carrying capacity is very effective everywhere. If we are doing that, then it can create wonders. So carrying capacity based on Malthusian theory, I'm not very much aware of it. I have heard about Malthusian catastrophe or Malthusian, that is arithmetic model, geometric model, and things like that. But I have never correlated with this carrying capacity theory with Malthusian theory. But I'll try to, since you have mentioned me this, I'll try to correlate this carrying capacity with Malthusian theory. Second thing is, what I mentioned is that the pattern of urbanization which is taking place in India is not in the sustainable way. Because many of the urban centers, small and medium cities, if we are doing with HD by EFP theories, and if we are evaluating with HD by EFP, and we are giving support, infrastructure, and things like that, then these cities, because of the compactness and economies of scale and human development opportunities, they will be flourishing and they will be flying high, so that a Keralite need not to come to Delhi, Bombay, or Calcutta for a job. Keralite, who are staying in hinterland places like Idiki, they can very well come to Trivandrum, then Cochin or Kozhikode. So that means in the regional basis, regionalized urbanization, that means if our urban areas are doing properly, there is no need of out migration to other cities. In a way, this is a most theoretical thing. A practical way, some kind of urbanization, someone has to go to Delhi or someone has to go to Bombay and all, but generally, people should depend. This kind of planning will create a scenario that people will depend on their immediate urban centers. And if the urbanization is taking place in a big way, the human development opportunities will be more in urban centers, and it will be shared by, because with the least ecological footprint, this urban facilities will be shared, so that many people will be living happily and in a healthy way, so that so many human development opportunities will be accessible to them. So here it is a very skewed way. The small and medium towns are not attaining economic momentum, but at the same time, mega cities are becoming bigger day by day, because there is a limit for infrastructural upgradation. So what will happen is, it is going in the negative. HD by FP calculations are taking, it might be on negative side. So a kind of balanced urban and regional development is can be inculcated if we are proceeding with this kind of mechanics, that is methodology. So I think I have answered your question in a way.
Thank you, ma'am, and thank you, sir, for the comment. Now I will move on to the Q&A box. Ma'am, I'll just read out the questions for you. The first question is by Ipshita ji. First of all, she is thanking you for the wonderful presentation. And the question is, while discussing HDI, you said that justified equality is equity. Could you elaborate on the difference between equality and equity and how this is necessary to ensure environmental efficiency and sustainability?
Equality means as total thing is divided equally and giving to different people. That is not sustainable, I feel, because it is dependent on the merit, it should be divided. Equity means a justifiable division. That means it should be shared equitably. That means environmental justice should be there. Nowadays, environmental injustice is happening. If you are having so much of resources and if India's total income tax base and it is divided into different people, all employees, irrespective of their class 1 or class 2 or class 3, it might be equality, but it is not equity based on their performance, and it should be done. So it should be done justifiably. That is equity.
Prakash is asking, the urbanization is massively going on without any consideration for sustainability. What role do you see for municipalities in this context of sustainability and carrying capacity?
Yeah, what I always, day in and day out, 24/7, I used to think how this theory can be extended to different levels. And in Kochi, what I found that the sustainability can be practiced by, that means in Greater Cochin metropolitan area, by twinning of municipalities and local bodies. Suppose a local body which is a panchayat and which is flourishing with agricultural activities, and if it is another municipality, or if it is a urban panchayats, it is flourishing with the urban activities. These two can be twinned together. These two authorities, local authorities, decide that we are twinning together so that your merits will be shared to us and our merits will be shared to you. So that kind of, because if I am from a Kakara municipality, which is a very flourishing municipality in the case of urbanization, and if I feel that there is one municipality which is far away, panchayats which is far away, and we are making a deal with panchayats telling that your agricultural area we will also contribute, so that we will be joining farming and your ecosystems will be protected, and for that we will be giving some incentives to our in our municipality, some kind of admissions, health facilities or educational facilities. So something like that, if or in terms of money or those kind of things, are if they are shared, we can see that these two urban and rural local body, whatever it may be, it will be attained. E and CC, in a way, CC will be attained in the panchayat flourished with the municipal agriculture, and E will be attained in the municipality. So this kind of sharing process can be taken without any calculations, because just see the Google map, we can understand that which is the ecologically with the local bodies which is having very less built up areas. Those the ecosystems must be very high integrity ecosystems without much disturbance. So we can think together and do such things.
Nuprita ji is asking, what is the role of sustainable finance in IHDI?
In IHDI calculations, health, education, income, and inequality. So sustainable finance, I am not an expert in finance, but I can see that income, whatever is there, it should be based on profitability. If there is no profitability, our government, state government is taking public debt and giving salary to a person, that is unsustainable. It is not a sustainable finance. So at the same time, whatever efforts we are making, we should be able to get profitability. This kind of IHDI by EFP calculations, profitability are assured because of the compactness and economies of scale.
Shailendra ji is asking, how can we strike a balance between the environmental balances and GDP at local and national front in our country?
Yeah, because when we are taking environmental efficiency calculations or may value, and if we are considered simply GDP, it will be going, everybody want to increase their GDP, or companies will be going to increase their GDP, which is a linear economy where the waste will be thrown to the sideways. They don't care to treat us, and all the products, what are they making, that the containers, what are they making, they are all thrown to the atmosphere, and it's all disturbing the ecosystems. But if in the case of environmental efficiency, if it is regulated and if it is judged based on environmental efficiency and may value, what happens is people or the companies or the nations will be forced to recycle and also reuse and to attain sustainability. So to increase their index. So that is a competition which should take place between countries and between states in the country, and also between cities or between districts in the state, like that.
Ma'am, we just have one more question to go. Govarji is asking, can decentralization of the facilities and services to the last mile at the local level help in rural to urban migration?
No, I am against that theory, because if we are taking the urbanization, that means if we are giving the basic facilities to 10 panchayats, the cost involved is very high, but the beneficiary number is less. So instead of 10 panchayats, I will advise that you make one panchayat, accommodate all the people in the 10 panchayats and accommodate in one panchayat and give the urban facilities, so that their footprint will be reduced to 1 by 10. At the same time, their ecosystems will be protected, our carrying capacity will be doubled or tripled.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for this wonderful deliberation and taking up all the questions from our participants. We thank you once again for being with us and being part of this training course.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Now, moving on to our next session. Our next eminent expert is Dr. Manu Gupta. Dr. Gupta is the co-founder, Seeds. Sir, welcome to the program, and kindly take over the session.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here, and thank you very much to colleagues in IMPRI and NIDM for giving me this opportunity to share some thoughts with you. So I guess this is the third day of the webinar, and I'm hoping that it has been very useful for all the participants so far. We must have heard a lot about global issues like what Dr. May Matthew just shared, but also particularly about the heat wave phenomena, which is the topic of this seminar. I don't think I need to get so much into those details, except the fact that while we are speaking, that we are experiencing unprecedented heat phenomena all over the world. And this year, earlier, the city of Delhi, from where I'm speaking just now, recorded its hottest March in recorded history. So what can be done about it, and why is it important for us to be talking about it in seminars such as these? So let me speak a little bit about my organization, so that will set the context of my intervention today, to give you overall background and possibly one operational, so to say, more grassroots kind of approach to tackling this problem. So Seeds is a non-profit organization. We've been working now for almost 30 years in the space of environment and disasters, mostly working in the grassroots at several climate-prone areas, climate impact-prone areas of our country. And we've been through many, many emergencies, climate-induced disasters, earthquakes, and have worked with communities on recovery, on resilience building, on disaster prevention. And much of what my learning has been in these 30 years has been, phenomenal in many ways. One that sometimes our theoretical approaches don't really work on the ground so much because of the context, because of people's knowledge, sometimes at crossroads with the kind of knowledge that we bring to the front lines. But the kind of harmony that we can create out of the scientific knowledge and traditional wisdom that remains with people can actually do wonders and find lasting solutions to some of the problems that we are dealing with. And heat wave is one such problem. So that's the kind of learning that I have been associated with through my organization and through our work on the front lines. Also, by training, I'm a city planner and an architect. So we bring with us a little bit of the habitat sector's experience. And that's what I would want to focus today as my case study. So, but I'll come to that later. Let me just again go back to this topic of heat waves. Heat waves, of course, many of us are now experiencing it in various ways in terms of, the impacts on our health, on our lifestyles. But imagine that for low-income populations of our country, where they are living in very degraded kind of shelter, habitat, shelter settlements, and with materials that are very, very prone to taking insulation from the atmosphere and generating indoor temperatures that are phenomenally high. So, but what kind of impacts that really take place, So presuming all of us today, there are nearly 200 people listening today to this seminar, presuming all of us are living in urban areas and maybe taking some help or services of a domestic help, a gardener, a chowkidar, or maybe a street vendor from whom we buy our fruit, vegetables, and fruits and vegetables, haven't we? And have we ever wondered, why do they disappear ever so often? Why do they take so many leaves? And even though they are physically much stronger than us, they have been working in very tough conditions. It is because that the mortality risk of climate emergencies falls disproportionately on communities that are the poorest, those who have to step outdoors every day to make a living. And if there is just one indicator I would take, talk to them about their monthly medical bills, and you will find that they are disproportionately higher than the average monthly bills that we middle class pay compared to our incomes. This is really where the problem gets amplified to a great extent. We did have a discussion around urban population and urbanization just a short while ago. But what happens when urbanization takes place, and nearly 70 to 80% of our urban housing is actually in the informal sector, these jhuggi jhopadis, these slum settlements, where these temperatures go so high during the day. So as Seeds, we've been looking at this problem, the problem of not just the scale. We are looking at, populations such as of India, where every third person is in an urban area, and out of that, every third person, every two people are living in an informal settlement. That all adds up to a large number. We are looking at, the challenge of affordability, the challenge of reaching out to large number of people, because heat wave is no longer a phenomena limited to a few geographies. We have seen that it has spread from the arid areas of Rajasthan to much of North India, Central India, and now even in Southern India. So how do we look at this problem of scale, the problem of replicability, the problem of affordability, because the target area is really those low-income migrants that are coming to our cities. So we have we did one studies about 3 years ago, looking at some of the existing public information that is available on climate vulnerability in our country, and we found that about 225 out of the 728 districts of our country are highly prone to climate change impacts. And their population, going by the 2011 census, was about 270 million. Even if we take the same growth rate, they would be about 310, 320 million by 2030. That's about a fourth of India's population, which will be directly impacted, and not just one time, but repeated recurrent disasters that will impact their lives. So our idea here is to look at this problem of the growing impact of climate and match it to scale and match it to the challenges of affordability and accessibility at national level. And so we are now building an ecosystem, SEEDS and its partners and many institutions who are represented here also on this webinar today. We're trying to create an ecosystem of organizations who can look at this with a common objective, and where we could match people who are in need to people who can provide products and services in the climate change space that can be used by people either at very affordable rates or even as grants assistance. We feel that this is not just the government's job. It is not one organization like SEEDS who can do it, but an alliance of like-minded organizations. And so that's our strategy looking forward. So coming back to this again, the heat issue that is the topic of this discussion. Heat would be one of the very important strategic areas of our work over the next 10 years for SEEDS. We're looking at studies like the MIT study, which said that by the end of this century, the entire South Asian region, the wet bulb temperatures will reach and on occasions exceed the threshold of 35 degrees, bringing the whole question of survivability of people who spend more than 6 years in a day outdoors. So it's now a question of survival. And cities, many other studies have also alluded to this, cities have it worse because of the urban heat island effect, about which I'm sure you're all familiar. Our own study in few slum settlements that we have been working showed that indoor temperatures in these kind of settlements, and I spoke about the kind of material they use, thin tin sheets or canvas or even plastic sheets. Indoor temperatures could go up to by 10 degrees during the day as compared to the ambient temperatures. And obviously, for people who are spending more time at home, so let's say the elderly or pregnant women or young children who are not going to school, this will have a huge impact on their health. This year in April, I was speaking to a few teachers in public schools where we were doing some work in eastern part of Delhi. And they were telling me that because of March becoming so hot and April of this year also remaining quite hot, there is almost 30 to 40% absenteeism among children in the primary school age. because of the heat strokes that they are suffering. So imagine losing so many days due to the pandemic and now losing so many days of education just because of heat strokes. So we are looking at now, coming back to our old strategy, we are looking at how do we introduce cooling devices. We are all familiar with air conditioners and we know how much they cost, not just to buy, but also to run. Obviously, these are beyond affordable levels of, for most of the common population. So I think the point that I'm trying to bring is that how do we then transfer this whole agency from us, from so-called the privileged people, to people who are affected. Necessity is the mother of invention. And we tried doing that with people who have been affected. And we've come up with some fantastic discoveries in this whole process. We have looked at some of the remarkable ways people have figured out ways to cool their homes with minimal costs and minimum investments and maintenance. I'm going to speak to you about that in a little bit in a moment. But before that, I also would like to say that together with NDMA, and I know Dr. Srivastava was there on the webinar yesterday or day before, we have also developed this House Owners Guide to Cooling Solutions, which I would recommend that you go through, where by putting these simple, affordable solutions on the rooftops of homes, we can reduce temperatures by 5 to 6 degrees. And that's a lot, considering the kind of indoor heat that we are realizing. So that's the kind of work that we've been doing. And I want to take this opportunity to share very briefly about one example of a slum area in Masoodpur, Delhi, where we have experimented with some of the learnings that actually community taught us. But if with some of the expertise that is there available in this room, we could actually, replicate it at the scale and at the level that I spoke about earlier in this session. So allow me to just pull up that presentation. Give me a moment. I hope I can do that. Sorry. I think I can share my screen, right?
Yes, please go ahead, sir.
Okay, one moment, please. Let's see it yet. Okay. I hope you can see it.
It's not coming full screen,
Is it okay now?
so you can try again.
Okay, one moment, please. Sorry. One moment, I think I'm making a mistake somewhere. Sorry.
So you can open the file and then try the share screen.
Okay. Ah, right. Okay. Is it visible now?
Yes. So you can try full screen.
Right. Okay.
Yes. Perfect. Please go ahead.
Okay, great. So, so this is basically about, you can see the screen, right? I mean.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this is about Masoodpur. This is where, this is a typical low-income settlement that we are all familiar with. and tackling heat waves, is a challenge for such kind of settlements, all over the country. This is one settlement where there is no waste disposal system, there is no water supply, and there is also the challenges of a healthy built environment. And you can see the kind of contraptions people have been using to to kind of generally survive these kind of conditions. So in these kind of settlements, what we really saw was hot metal clad in combustible material, and such material would take only 10 minutes to go down in flames, and temperatures here could actually reach as high as 47 degrees Celsius, which is a far cry from an ideal 33 degrees required for comfort and 1 hour of fire safety promised by houses we live in. So that kind of scenarios are there. So our intervention, very small, started once when there was actually a tragic fire in this settlement. And the community built some, 1,000 homes in a couple of months, again, by salvaging whatever material they had, and using the waste that they kind of brought together from the urban homes, and try to build that using that kind of material. They had access to a variety of waste, which again, could be something that we felt could be a potential for looking at how do we reduce indoor temperatures within these houses. And so we felt that, these slum dwellers truly are innovators. They've used like this, and you can see they've used cardboards on walls. And this is something that happens without any external interventions. They use cardboards on walls, acrylic for windows, cycle tires to often soften the wall edges. Things like this. This is not just for protecting them, but also reducing indoor temperatures. You can see how even steel, rubber tires have been used here to actually soften the edges of these houses. So in short, what I'm trying to say is that even with this scrap material, we could see a lot of interesting examples of how they have improvised to create comforts within them, and temperatures and high temperatures being one of them. We could also look at how they have stored water drums in sometimes very, very crudely, but also in a very smart way. And some of our learnings, and this is our young architects and researchers who have been in this field, I'm speaking on their behalf, how they could actually look at opportunities within this. And I must say that they've been very smart in not just observations, but also in talking to people on how we could use some of those to actually create walls that are cool. Some have even grown creepers. These are vegetable creepers to create shading devices. So what we did was created these, what we call the drum rack walls, which obviously cost nothing. So we have taken an international kind of thumb rule, which is about $20. And they had the potential to reduce the temperatures by 3 to 5 degrees. If we want to increase the insulative capacity of such walls, something more aesthetic also. So we used bamboo ladders, which are again available very commonly in these places. And these not only hold the water tanks to a higher elevation, to a higher height, sorry, but also provide opportunities for, putting more garden, more green areas, more green plants. And so, overall, we could see that there is wealth that could be created from the waste that they already had, and including examples of not just thermal comfort, but because of water storage or fire safety, something that was been a concern for them for a long time. So here are some live pictures of this. And one could see how, these temperatures have actually fallen from, the indoor temperatures for, it had reached 44 to actually going down during the day to lower temperatures by almost 7 to 8 degrees. All this could be done in just about 1,000 to 1,500 rupees. And so these are, this is just an illustration that I wanted to bring about to say that when we are looking at scale, when we are looking at problems of such magnitude, and with the added challenge of affordability and replication and limited supply chains, we need to celebrate, we need to promote and incubate innovations such as these. And sometimes the best solutions are there already, like my young researchers found out in this Masoodpur slum. All we need to do is perhaps build on them and see how we could make them more replicable, more modularized in some way, so that communities can learn from each other. And we've had several such sessions. We've created now a citizens forum where people from different communities are able to exchange ideas and address this issue of climate impacts in various ways. And this extends not just to heat waves, but also other typical problems that hit low-income settlements in urban areas, which is like flooding, and again, a very common phenomena which we are experiencing currently as we are speaking. So let me stop here, and maybe I can take a few questions or any observations, any comments. I'm not an academician, so pardon me for my limited articulation on these issues, but I would love to discuss. That's what I've been doing with people, so that's more comfortable space for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Gupta, for this excellent presentation and making us learn about the key areas that your organization is focusing on. Now, I would like to request Tikender Singh ji to add some comments.
We have questions here, no, for this session?
Yes, sir. We have few questions.
Okay, great. So let's go ahead with the question.
Okay, sir. Dr. Gupta, I will read out the questions for you.
Yes, please.
Prakash ji is asking, in Mumbai, every year, more than 100 people die who are workers and who do the cleaning work for the people of Mumbai. Working in inhuman work conditions, is this not national disgrace that we ignore our own people so terribly? What could be done?
Yeah, this is a bit unrelated to the current topic of discussion, but let me take a stab at it anyway. I completely agree with you, my friend, that a lot of our workers are working in very, very inhuman conditions, and not just working, but also living in very inhuman conditions. I spoke to you about how high indoor temperatures in urban low-income settlements can affect their health so much, and as a result, make a significant negative impact on their monthly income and expenditures. According to ILO, and I'm sure somebody else must have shared with you, we are losing 34 million jobs every year because of heat alone. So these are inhuman conditions for people, to work on, and I feel that we are not doing enough. We are not doing enough to look at such conditions. So in worker sheds, for example, in areas where they are exposed to the constant sunlight during the day, we need to offer solutions. We need to talk to their employers. We need to bring in labor policies that allow them, rest from exposure. So like the MIT study which said that more than 6 hours of continuous exposure to the sun can actually even cause high mortality rates. I feel that, policies now need to be looked at from a point of view of how do we rework some of these working hours? How do we provide adequate rest, adequate fluids for people so that their productivity does not get affected, but more important, their health is secured against climate impacts. I hope
Sir,
that kind of answers your question.
yes, sir. So moving on to the next question, Sailendra ji is asking, why don't we use ancient technology to lower inside temperatures?
Yeah, so ancient technology is very much used, unfortunately not promoted and therefore not practiced. I am in complete support of ancient or the traditional wisdom that is there with our people. And I can see your question. You have also spoken about some of the material that has been used. You know, I remember there was one experiment in our work in Badmer. Badmer is in Western Rajasthan. In 2008, so this is basically a arid area of our country. But in 2008 and then ever since, there has been flooding events, flash flooding events in the district of Badmer every 2 years, because of these shifting monsoon patterns. So traditionally, they have used their wisdom to make earth walls, all walls out of adobe, which obviously they are thick walls and they have a natural insulation effect. And, the indoor temperatures in these kind of homes are very, very comfortable. Now, if with floods and with changing climates, you cannot just maintain the status quo, which is that you cannot just continue with what has been practiced traditionally. We need to look at this new science and what it is doing to people. So when we started rebuilding homes after this 2000 floods in Badmer, we spoke to many experts, and what we came out with CSEB blocks, cement stabilized earth blocks, which meant that you use the traditional earth, the traditional ancient wisdom, but you stabilize it a little bit with 5% cement added to it. That not only retained its natural qualities of keeping indoor temperatures low, the natural insulative properties, but also it provided resistance to flooding events, which is when water comes in and it can, take away all these earth buildings because, earth naturally mixes with water. But with cement there, they could withstand these flooding events. So I think the ancient wisdom teaches us a lot. In the eastern part of our country, the Missing tribe, which is between Assam and Nagaland and Manipur, has traditionally lived on low-lying areas on bamboo stilts. In the current flooding season, in the current kind of climate impacts, this kind of technology needs replication. This needs improvement. This needs scaling. So we've been looking at these ancient technologies, but also looking at how modern methods can actually secure and replicate these examples. So like I said, we promoted the use of cement stabilized earth blocks in Badmer, which was a new thing. But now it is being replicated by people themselves. Same in Assam, we did these housing for 80 families who were affected by floods, but we used their ancient wisdom. we added a few reinforcements so that they don't have to be rebuilt every time, because bamboo by itself can get degraded very soon. But now, because of that external intervention, the same families have been able to survive 7 floods and still their houses are secure. So ancient wisdom is great, but a little bit of our learning can actually make them much more resilient to the kind of climate impacts that we are seeing. Yeah.
So another question is by Govarji. The question is, what can be the sustainable solution for slum dwellers to be part of regular population with the basic necessities of life to reduce their vulnerability to multiple disasters, including heat wave?
Yeah, so I shared today one sustainable solution, there can be many, and I'm sure when you speak to some of the social entrepreneurs, they are looking at, for example, low-cost means of providing clean drinking water, of providing toilets for low-income settlements where they can be affordable, easy to maintain, and be replicated. So there has been a lot of research on that under the Swachh Bharat mission as well. The point I think which is important and that I was trying to bring out is that each context is different. Each slum settlement is a challenge by itself. So let's not try to just do an industrial production kind of approach where you provide a standard product and then you just keep on multiplying. You need to look at a solution, but also be flexible as to what are those contextual needs, what are people's capacities, and in relation to the question that was asked just now, what are the traditional practices, the traditional wisdom of people that we need to secure for each of those areas that we are addressing. But then go back to looking at some of those solutions that can be then built on these kind of existing parameters and be replicated. So yeah, I just shared with you one example, but actually there could be many more. There are many more that we have come across. And this is an area of continuous work. And I would encourage, people who are on this webinar today to also invest some of their time for doing this work for humanity.
Survi Palji is asking, is India focusing on sustainable architecture for urban planning and smart cities?
This is a loaded question. So yes, we are. India is in a big way investing in smart cities, and we can see a lot of change coming to tier 2, tier 3 cities in this country. But I am not very sure whether all of them are necessarily sensitive to the climate impacts that we are looking at. And I see that because I'm seeing live examples of some of those so-called smart cities are now suffering from floods and other climate impacts. So I think there are brilliant minds in our country, and they are very committed people who are working. What I would say is, let's build an alliance of people who are really concerned. And I think if we can put that pressure on the system, on our policies, then I think we will be able to make that difference. And again, my linchpin here is always that bring the agency to people, make them the center of our intervention. When that happens, even our political systems listen to what is needed on the ground. So I think if I would like to summarize that answer in 3 words, it's work in progress.
So, Nihal G is asking, how do you think we can institutionalize adaptive practices like the one you presented? This becomes very important, especially in the case of heat action plans. And they might be targeted at wealthier section of the society that are less impacted by heat waves.
Yeah, no, I think this is the solution is in the question itself. I'll pick up the point around institutionalizing adaptive practices. Fortunately, many cities in our country are now coming up with heat action plan. The Ahmedabad heat action plan was the first in our country. I'm sure somebody would have spoken to you about it at length, and that talks about different levels of alert and also what kind of actions for that correspond to each alert level. Along with heat action plans, I think we need to create that body of knowledge. We need to create those institutions that can provide affordable services and solutions to our fellow city dwellers, to our low-income settlements for such kind of solutions. And because they need to be adaptive, because they need to be very context-based, because they need to be very people-centered, it's best that such kind of institutions actually sit with our universities, with our academic institutions all over the country. Centers like NIDM are the best places to host such kind of institutional practices and be able to provide that extension services. I know it's not maybe in the main mandate of a national institute like NIDM, but maybe through one of its network institutions, provide that extension services to
Dr. Gupta? So are you there?
Connection got stuck.
Yes, I think there's some technical error here. Dr. Gupta? I think there is some technical glitch there on Sir's side.
Sir has joined again.
Okay, Sir has joined again.
We can go for concluding remarks. from-
sorry. There was a power cut at my end. Sorry.
Not an issue, sir. So probably we can conclude the session. Hello?
Yeah, if there's anything I can add.
Yes, sir. So please go ahead.
No, I'm sorry, there was a power cut here. So just to say that we have been, so this institutionalization of adaptive practices really is the key, and I think that is that question itself provided the conclusion to what I wanted to present today. So that's all I want to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Gupta, for taking up all the questions and being with us in this training program. That was the end of second session for our last day of our training. And now moving on to the third session and the last session of this training program. Our distinguished expert for this last session is Dr. Pooja Paswan. Dr. Paswan is the Assistant Professor, Department of Political Science, Jamia Millia Islamia, New Delhi. We welcome you, ma'am.
Yeah, am I
Dr. Paswan?
audible?
Yes, ma'am, you are
Hi.
audible. We welcome you to the training program, ma'am, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you to the Impact and Policy Research Institute, the conveners, the moderator, director, and dear colleagues. I will now share my screen. So please let me know if you can see my screen.
Yes, ma'am, it's visible.
Yeah. So I'm going to speak about the process of designing a socio-environmental policy in a country like India. For the past 3 days, we've been deliberating and discussing matters regarding um, the dangerous effect or the hazardous effect of heat wave and various other climatic uh, calamities. And when it comes to disaster management, how well prepared are we? Where are the lacunae lie? And in terms of designing policy, are we looking at places where we should be looking, or are we overlooking something which needs to be in a line of sight? So, yeah, when we look at the current scenario, this is just a brief scenario which um, I'll just take you through. So there have been series of heat waves since this particular program is regarding the heat wave and its effect and consequences. So there have been a string of heat waves and episodes of heat wave around the world over the past few years, and the intensity of the said heat wave and such calamity has increased over the period of time. If any one of you is familiar, especially students from geography background, you must be familiar with various ice ages which have been prevalent since the inception of Earth, or uh, Earth as we know it. So there have been several ice ages, and according to one theory, we happen to find ourselves in the middle of one where the ice is receding, which means the planet is getting warmer, and it will continue to get warmer. So it has nothing to do with the placement of Earth, but rather these ice ages, they do come in over the period of time. And according to several theories, the extinction of certain species was because of the advancing or the retreating ice ages, for that matter. When we are looking at our planet, like I said, it's getting warmer with with uh, the passage of time. And why is this happening? Then again, if you look at, I'm sorry, I don't have any diagrams. I just thought I'll just go through the uh, theory aspect of policy making. But if you just imagine or look at the diagram, the climatological diagram of Earth, so we do find that the air and the traveling of energy happens from a high pressure to a low pressure. It happens from tropical, it moves from the tropical region to the temperate to the polar region, and that's what constitutes the movement of atmosphere. And the movement of atmosphere also influences your ocean currents, for that matter, right? When we put all of that into perspective as to why is the particular heat wave or these heat intensity impact zones taking place, we tend to see that there is a huge uh, similarity between certain conditions. One would be the movement of jet stream. If the difference between the high and the low pressure is extreme, then there's a possibility uh, that the air in that particular area will move with a greater intensity from a high pressure area to a low pressure area. So this is basically the core mechanics of how a tropical cyclone moves. Now, when we look at the movement of jet streams over the period of time, we tend to see that the difference between a high pressure area and a low pressure area, temperature difference, is not as diverse or as wide as we want it to be, and hence there is a slow movement of the jet streams. Why does this matter to us? Like I said, the average global temperature is on the rise, which means to any layman, the ice caps will melt, the islands will be submerged. The areas which experience uh, drought and flash floods, these incidences will increase, we are also witnessing a slow desertification of semi-arid regions, for that matter. And along with this, we have a very funny way of looking at development policy. Now, when we think about development, the first thing that comes into mind is well-planned cities and concrete jungles and access to infrastructure and amenities. But however, our policymakers have confused development with urbanization, and here we need to draw a clear distinction as to when we talk about development, what are we basically looking at? Are we trying to convert villages into cities? Is that what development is for us? That every village should now have a mall, every village should now have more concretization in terms of usage of in terms of construction of houses or infrastructure. Should they all become heat source or heat islands? We need to understand this as well. One example, a very practical example I'll give you is every year during Diwali, when Delhi is choking with smog and a heavily polluted air, anybody who's outside of Delhi, living in a village with a cleaner air, in hilly regions, anywhere where you have access to a cleaner air, you should consider yourself developed. So in the modern sense, development is access to good resources, not just access to resources, but access to resources that will increase the longevity or increase the quality of life, enhance the quality of life. Not that we have these infrastructural development, but on a personal front, we are collapsing because of the stress generated by the so-called development infrastructure. You have concrete islands, you have concrete jungles, but there's immense air pollution that when you walk in certain cities, you should be wearing an oxygen mask. There are cities where ecology and development is balanced, and how those governments have been able to achieve that particular balance is what we'll be looking at. Because when we look at the environmental policies in India, we always forget we are a developing nation, not a developed nation. Another thing, we have a high population density, and 70% of that population resides in semi-urban or rural areas. So owing to which the idea of development will vary, across different regions, and of course across different economic factors. So the idea of development for a farmer with absolutely no or less access to water or less access to irrigation will be 24-hour water supply, or a more convenient way of being involved in agriculture, access to funds, access to money, access to easy loans, etc., etc. So we need to understand that when we talk about development, we don't have to necessarily exclude the ecological balance which exists or which comes along with the whole concept of development then again, right? And putting that into perspective, when I do remember, we often talk about sparrows leaving Delhi. Delhi is a metro city, it's a mega city, and then we tend to justify that, all right, it's a metro, it's polluted, there is over urbanization, and hence certain species of birds, including butterflies for that matter, and several other species of flora and fauna tend to leave their natural habitat and migrate elsewhere. But if you go to New York, you will find, New York is a mega city, but you will find sparrows there. They have been able to maintain that particular green cover, and not just maintaining a green cover, for namesake, but maintaining a green cover, which means there is a pond, there is a water body, there is enough flora and fauna, there is enough interaction between man and nature, so that the ecological balance is not disturbed. So you might have, like in Delhi, there is a nursery culture and there's a parks culture, but not many of us are aware that before the construction of Varakhamba Metro, the whole area of Barakhamba right up to the Copernicus Marg was covered in trees. So we got rid of that huge green cover in order to make way for a more convenient mode of transportation and a better connectivity in the name of development, right? And of course, Delhi Metro happened 20 years back. It's 15 years back rather, but then it's been a long journey. And at that particular point of time, India's priority was a better connectivity, et cetera, et cetera. But when we see that we are paying a huge price of that so-called priority, prioritizing health before development, development before health, prioritizing, development before a better standard of living, we tend to have a very skewed idea of how a policy should be shaped. And for that, I will take you through in the next slide. So when we look at, we often talk about sustainable development and understand this, that as your planet heats, there will be several social impact, political impact, ecological impact, economic impact, of that particular implication. So with a warmer planet, we tend to find that yes, there will be health implication. B, in terms of nutritional requirement, we all know that, as in locally, that in case if you get a heat stroke, this is the local remedy that you should be doing. This is the recovery period. If allopathy is not available to you, then you should wrap the person in a wet blanket or something of that sort, or make sure they are well hydrated, and not just hydrated, using water, but a mineral water, or bel ka sharbat, or coconut water for that matter, which has ions, so that salt will be replenished. Now, as we move to a more warmer earth, these so-called ancient knowledge, or these nuskas, have to be a part of our daily narrative as well. We cannot keep relying on the old knowledge base of this. 10 years back, the weather used to be like this. I mean, I remember when I was in school, after the Diwali break, which is, in October, our winter uniform was out. We were asked to wear blazers and ties and everything. And currently, the winter uniform in Delhi does not come out before December. It's still warmer, and no matter how much you want to blame global warming, of course, yes, industrialization and global warming, all of that, but there is no moving away from the fact that this is also a way, a natural process. Like I said, in the different phases of ice age, the planet is supposed to get warmer, and this is then again which a process which happens after several hundred years, and unfortunately we find ourselves during the warmer phase. When we look at the social impact, when we further explore the social impact, there are certain sections which of society who witness a higher mortality. They witness, they are more vulnerable based on the fact that they're economically weaker. They happen to be immigrants in the current city. If they were back in their village, living with their families, they will have somebody to take care of them. So high mortality is often seen in areas where the economic inequality is higher, or the access to infrastructure, health, funding is relatively less, or access to emotional support, community support is relatively less. So having said that, the social impact makes a huge difference, and it will adversely affect people coming from a vulnerable section of the society. When we look at the social impact, the heat-related social impacts are not evenly distributed across population. Richer people have access to infrastructure. They have access to funding. They have access to cool environment. They have access to alternatives, with nutritional alternatives. So if a certain nutritional supplement is unavailable in their diet, they would supplement it with by taking artificial supplements or any way how. However, people coming from economically weaker section tend to rely on natural substitutes. So you will often find that the people who are involved in physical labor, they tend to have a certain kind of a diet which is rich in protein, and it is also advisable that they should have a diet which is rich in protein and fiber, and of course other food groups. But people with a certain sedentary lifestyle need to have a different kind of diet which will suit their lifestyles. Now, this particular knowledge is predominantly with people who are slightly more well off, who have access to the resources to provide and nourish themselves in a certain way. But when we look at migrant population, we look at these informal settlements, the slum areas, we will often find that they are at a far more risk as opposed to people who have shielded or protected themselves economically, because there is a lack of poor infrastructure. Also, the fact that they are at a disadvantageous location, away from their community, they lack the knowledge of where to go for a healthcare or where to seek healthcare, etc., etc. Another aspect, when we look at the social aspect of the heat wave, the social aspect is directly linked with the economic aspect. So as your planet gets warmer, the open air or the jobs or the labor work which is available, in open areas will be diminished. So you must have seen that during the heat wave, the construction, the labor gets expensive. During certain seasons, the labor gets expensive. During COVID, the cost of labor increased. Then again, so job opportunities such as construction, creation of constructing a building, creating infrastructure, all of this is bound to be more expensive in the near future. The labor will be expensive. The cost of creating infrastructure will be expensive. And globally, there will be a decrease in, this is again a projection made by UNEP, but there will be a decrease of 2% of the working hour every year, because either it's too hot to work, or the labor population or your human resource does not like the condition, the working condition, and hence you have to alter the condition, you have to provide safe working environments, etc., etc., and all of that will require money. When we look at the agricultural sector in India, large percentage of people earn their livelihood through agriculture, but India has a problem of land ownership, meaning that you do have small and marginal farmers and farmers with medium land holding or smaller land holding. So as your planet gets hotter, the kind of investment which a farmer will now be putting in the agriculture will differ. More irrigation required. The kind of crops that they go for will differ. Crops which can survive a hot temperature, or the cropping pattern will be different. Will have to be adjusted. All of this is economically intensive area. We might try to convince ourselves that agriculture is the most sustainable form of economic activity, but we'll be kidding or lying to ourselves, because agriculture, although supports a large percentage of population, but having said that, it still relies on the rudimentary form of agriculture. A farmer is less likely to make a huge investment if he or she does not own a huge chunk of land. And agriculture, even today, is the safe haven or a plan B of a lot of migrant workers. So having said that, as your planet continues to get warmer and warmer, the cropping patterns will be changed, will be readjusted. how you raise your livestock will have to be readjusted, and so on and so forth. Now, India is also seeing that there are changes in the weather pattern, and it's directly impacting, like I said, it's directly impacting your agriculture. These are just a few statistics. But having said that, there is now a growing energy demand for cooling. So this year, we saw that the Indian government decided to revive the coal mines, and there was a shortage and more frequent power cuts, particularly in the cities during this particular summer. We're also seeing that there is a huge heat wave, intensified heat wave in parts of Britain and in parts of Wales. Having said that, all of this increases the demand for cooling. All of this increases and puts additional pressure on your work, on your businesses, and new infrastructure has to be created in order to support the existing demand, right? And with these, why creating of new infrastructure, replacing existing infrastructure adds to your carbon footprint, adds to generation, of more process that will generate greenhouse gases, for that matter. When we look at ecological impact, like I said, if you are convinced by the fact that this is a mega city and yes, certain species will leave you and it's only too natural, then you need to stop and look at certain successful mega cities or more developed cities in the West where they have balanced ecology and development. And then again, we need to do that too. So, I remember when I was in graduation, and my college had this a water harvesting technique. They had this whole tank and everything installed. And our principal, any guest or dignitary who used to come to visit my college, would be given a tour of the water harvesting plant that was placed in the college. And there's an underground tank and there's a rainwater harvesting, etc., etc. And my college made a big deal out of it. Having said that, when we look at rain harvesting technique, there is so much of enhancement in the technology which was placed during 2005 in a college. And now when we look at rain harvesting technique, when we look at tapping of solar power, when we look at generating electricity through the use of wind energy, there is so much of technological development that has taken place. But how much of that development has been implemented or percolated from developed countries to the developing or underdeveloped countries? Because that enhanced technology is costly. And the more latest the technology, the costlier it is. And of course, developed countries tend to invest heavily in research and the marketability of a more cleaner and a greener technology. Developing countries are usually the consumers of such advanced technology, and with which there is a power balance which is always oriented towards developed countries. They will develop, they will come up with a new technology, something more greener, which reduces your carbon footprint. You can trade that security in the international market, etc., etc. But like I said, you will always be looking west for, a better technology and a more cleaner air, etc., and all of that. So ecological, like I said, coming back to this, the ecological impact has to balance the development, and that can only be done if we invest economically and politically in the policy making process. How we'll do that, I'll just quickly take you through. These are again statistics. Sorry. Right, I've been through this. Yeah. So in the public policy sphere, we often talk about two aspects. One is value fact dichotomy and identifying counterfactual. What is value fact dichotomy? very simple way. Value is something you attach to a fact. For example, the color of this particular fabric is dark blue. Now, this is a fact. Why? Because it's absorbing every other color and it is reflecting this particular color. We all know this particular color is called dark blue or navy blue, whatever. But the value which I might attach to this particular fact will differ from culture to culture. So maybe to a culture, I belong to a certain culture, which might think that this particular color, navy blue, is auspicious. So hence I'm wearing it. Maybe a certain ideology associates something else with this particular color, and hence I'm wearing it to show my solidarity towards a particular movement or things like that. Now, in public policy or policy making, we need to separate the value from the fact. So when we are looking at a semi-arid region, or when we are looking at a hilly region, and we tend to associate certain culture or cropping patterns or food habits with that particular region, know this, that as your weather changes, as the climate changes, and it has started to change, it's been changing for a while now, your attachment to certain food items or attachment to certain colors or attachment to certain certain weather phenomenon might have to be dealt away with. So like we tend to hear a lot of these aspects that now farmers are moving from non-traditional crops to cash crops. So you will find a strawberry farm in the hills. You will find, instead of the traditional rhododendron, you tend to find more berries which are not indigenous to India, right? But their economic value is higher, and the fact that they're very exotic, and they look really nice on your dining table, that particular demand has pushed the farmers to invest in non-indigenous crops, but know this, I'm not advocating that, we should go back to indigenous crops or something, but as the weather changes, the weather is also supporting such farming. And we have to be prepared for a time when the weather will force farmers to orient their crops according to the climate, the climate changes that now we are seeing. So there used to be a particular brand of rice, and it had these small grains. We used to call it tuta chawal or something of that. So if you go to a grocery store, and it was made during festivals, and this was used when we used to make kheer or something of that sort. Now kheer is made with basmati rice, not the tutawa chawal. What I'm trying to tell you is that broken rice was indigenous to certain areas. So when the first harvest used to take place, the rice was used from the first harvest to cook something and offer it to the local devtas. Now it's more exotic to cook your kheer in basmati rice. Basmati has a very high fragrance, but when it comes to sweetness or a high starch content, it lacks both of them. Whereas if you go to a village and if you have the indigenous rice which is grown, it will be slightly fat, thoda mota hota hai, but it will not be sleek and very pulao like basmati chawal, but the taste will be very different. The nutritional value is very different. Know this for a fact that while designing a sound policy, the policymakers have to remove the value from the fact in order to see the situation objectively. A particular area like the Kosi River is notorious for changing its course every year during floods. Now, what people of this particular village have done, they have constructed the houses on the first floor, and the ground floor is basically, they have made passages for the river water to pass. So hence the life is not disturbed, it's left undisturbed even during floods. People tend to orient. Policymakers have to do that as well, right? Then another aspect is identifying counterfactual. now this is a great way of introducing a new policy. Supposing Delhi, when we couple of years back, Arvind Kejriwal's government introduced an odd even scheme to reduce the air pollution and things like that. But the odd even scheme had, a certain criteria. And I remember talking about the odd even scheme at a conference in Denver, where people were actually amazed. Like if you're a woman and you're driving, then odd even does not apply to you if you're a lone driver. And I had a great time during those period, because there were no men on the road. I mean, very few men on the road. Also, the Delhi roads were literally empty, and less checking and things like that. But having said that, that particular experiment, how successful or how unsuccessful it was, there are of course mixed data. Having said that, when a government or when any policymaker decides to introduce a particular policy or a program, then there are several factors which go into identifying the said counterfactuals. A, is clean air important to you? Or you're okay with buying diffusers, and you're okay with wearing a mask, or you're okay with wearing an oxygen mask, you're okay with bad lungs, because if you're okay with all of that, the government will not make an effort to provide you with clean air. But if clean air, sustainable livelihood is very, very important to you, green technology is very important to you, vegan lifestyle is very important to you, then the government will do something about it. So identifying counterfactual is that I need to lower the air pollution. If I introduce odd even scheme, this would cut down the carbon emission by this much. If I remove all the men from the road, again kidding, so the carbon emission will be cut down this much. If we focus on planting more trees will take at least 5 years to grow, but I need to have an array of staff to look after those trees and make sure that they, they're not plugged or they're not damaged, and they survive, so that the green cover can increase by this much percentage, and the carbon footprint will be reduced, etc., etc. But all these are counterfactuals, helping me make a plan A, plan B, plan C, so that I can anticipate in advance or make an intelligent guess as to which of the plans will work. One second. There's also a process called a strategic triangle in policy design. Like I said, before any policy is implemented or even conceived, the idea is even conceived, there's often a strategic triangle test done for that particular policy. Is it technically correct? Or even was technically implementable? Announce that if this is your registration number, you bring out your car. If you're a woman driving by yourself, welcome, and things like that. And during these school hours, carpooling is allowed, etc., etc. This is technically correct. You can do all of that. Then again, political supportability. Like I said, if clean air is important to you, if organic farming is important to you, if use of organic fertilizers is important to you, if discontinuation of BT seeds is important to you, then your political machinery will get behind it. Your representatives will get behind it. But if it is not important to you, like organic farming is less important to you as opposed to access to education. You want education first. Organic farming can wait. So your political power will get behind providing you with sustainable education, free or compulsory education, etc., etc. But if longevity is important to you, good life expectancy is important to you, if ecological balance is important to you, then you will find political supportability to complement those demands. Again, right? And then, of course, organizationally implementable. Is it cost effective? So whether it's a social policy, environmental policy, they all go through cost benefit analysis. They all go through deciding on the counterfactual. If we do this, can we reach this particular milestone? If we open primary healthcare center, will it reduce child mortality rate? Will it reduce maternal mortality rate? Should we start, a dedicated nutrition program for adolescent girls to curb maternal mortality rate? So even this is, of course, I'm giving the example of health policies, but in terms of environmental policies, because when we see the history of environmental policy in India, we are hugely lacking. And that's because environment has not taken a priority for us yet. With 1.3 billion population, we're still struggling to stay afloat economically. We are still struggling to provide a decent lifestyle for the most vulnerable section of the society. After COVID, certain policies which were built over a decade, 2 decades, over 30, 40 years have taken a huge hit. We are still looking to compensate all of that. So currently ask yourself, as a person, as professors, as directors, as students, is environment important to you over access to infrastructure, access to health, access to education, access to jobs? Is it important to you? Because if the answer is no, or it can wait, all these three factors of the strategic triangle will show you whether environment is a priority for you or it can wait. Right? Then there's a policy design theory, which is called a theory of change. I want relief from heat wave. All right, what will be my first intervention? Maybe as a government, I issue that no outside work during the period of June and July in this particular area in North India. Can I do that? The output will be less available, more costly labor, less, a decrease in mortality rate, less burden on hospitals in dealing with cases of heat waves, etc., etc. The outcome would be, again, less mortality rate, and impact would be that people would slowly, over the period of time, adapt to these interventions. An intervention, if it is sudden, the government has to be very far-sighted in anticipating the output and outcome before you begin to see the impact of a policy. So when the government announced that we will provide free education, the output would be literacy rate will increase. But what is the outcome? People will still hesitate whether we should send our kids to school, or not. It's only after midday meal scheme, the incentive of getting a hot nutritional meal led parents, compelled parents to send their kids to school, and the impact was a high literacy rate or a high or less school dropout. Take that particular theory and let's put it in an environmental policy design. So again, during these many months, 2 months, Delhi is absolutely unbearable. The cases of heat wave, heat strokes are very high. What do? From community perspective, you can have those PIAU and provision where people can have access to water. Give free packets of ORF and salt solution, saline solution. Make the knowledge as to how to protect yourself during the heat wave as accessible as possible through jingles, through social media, etc., posters, all of that. Only then you can begin to see the impact, not in this particular month or this particular year, but over the period of time. These things happen gradually, because a culture has to be established over the period of time. Bombay did not start lining or queuing at a bus stop overnight. Something must have initiated that culture, and that culture is pretty much lacking in Delhi. Again, I'm digressing. When we look at the disaster management aspect, again, there is one paper on disaster management which I teach in Jamia. So we tend to explore that. What do you mean by a disaster and what do you mean by a hazard? So heat wave, again, is a natural phenomenon. But if it claims the loss of life and property, then it becomes a disaster. Now, understand this, that during certain months in India, where certain areas tend to witness a huge rise in temperature, and also these are the areas which are densely populated with less green cover. During these months, such areas can be identified based on their vulnerability. Certain sections of people can be identified based on their vulnerability, how economically, how economically comfortable they are, or would they require certain assistance, etc., etc. Right? When a disaster occurs, when a hazard meets a vulnerability. So we know for a fact that certain months in India are the period in which temperature rises, shoots up very fast in a very small amount of time. However, know this, that by acquainting ourselves to the hazard and making sure that we have identified the vulnerability areas, we will be able to do a better risk management. One example that comes to mind is the example of Orissa, where they have dealt with the recurring tropical cyclone in such a way that it's a global case study. It's a very successful case study. Understand this, we need to do something of that sort, making sure that people are taken care of. Pulling community cooperation, during these particular months, making sure that community comes together, making sure people are well aware, as what to do and what not to do. Not only that, making sure that people from all age groups know exactly what to do. So your child in a school bus, a primary kid in a school bus should know that if a friend feels a little woozy or is showing us certain symptoms, the teacher needs to be alerted or offer water or something of that sort. So how do kids, or how does your society respond to a disaster? We should know this. During monsoon months or during certain months, we often find that orange alert has been issued, or some warning has been issued. We tend to disregard these kind of warnings, orange alert or yellow alert or whatever. We tend to disregard. But what exactly needs to be done when such warnings are issued? That particular aspect, that particular knowledge is required. And not just that, we should be keeping the knowledge and not doing anything with it, but making sure it is implementable. Regular drills, repeated voicing or repeated echoing of guidelines, etc., that needs to be done. A heat wave is again another disaster management, another disaster hazard, which can turn into a disaster if we are not prepared. So in the disaster management, we can start with prevention. We know that these 2 months are crucial and the weather will change, hence avoid less mobility. From the government side, how do we design certain policies? We can alter the working hours. Like in the West, when the clock is altered during summer solstice and winter solstice. So hence you can alter the working hours, make certain policies by mitigation, by being prepared. If we have mastered prevention, mitigation, and preparedness, then our effort after the disaster or the recovery time will be less after the disaster. But if we are unprepared in these aspects of prevention, mitigation, and preparedness, which is, of course, a pre-disaster exercise, then we often find ourselves vulnerable when the disaster hits, and a huge amount of work needs to be done in the post-disaster management phases as well. So like I said, a better disaster preparedness in terms of heat wave, having the knowledge and the understanding that this is what's happening to the planet and this is not going to be easy. There will be months where temperature will exceed 50. We need to be prepared as a government, as society, as community as well. What to do when the disaster impacts? At the time of the impact, when you find yourself in Delhi in the month of June, or July was also no cakewalk, but then it rained. But having said that, during the time of impact, how well prepared are you? Are you keeping a tab on your hydration? Are you keeping a tab on your health? Are you keeping, are you sharing knowledge or pieces of information which is provided to you by the government among your loved ones, etc., etc.? Is your institution, the place where you work, equipped better or preparing well in case somebody collapses due to heat stroke? Do you have packets of ORF, and do you have enough hydration to revive the person, etc., etc.? So your responses, how well prepared you are during disaster preparedness, impact, and response will make sure that the recovery and mitigation take less of a time. Right? We often tend to see, what are the policy gaps when we're designing any policy, social policy, health policy, environmental policy. The weak performance owing to the principal and agent problem. The speaker before me mentioned that we should keep agents, people at the center of any policy design or any policy implementation. This is absolutely true. Again, giving the example of Delhi, a migrant laborer coming to Delhi comes with the idea of earning money. So preserving his health, or preserving or securing a sustainable livelihood or a better standard of living is secondary to acquiring or earning more money. Hence, we tend to find more casualty or cases where laborers tend to fall sick, etc., etc. Right? So know this, that you might have, the government might issue a guideline that no working hours or no work during these particular two weeks of heat wave, but the weakest of the weaker section tends to suffer consequences of these kind of policy decisions. Like when the government issued the dikkat that there will be a lockdown, an immediate lockdown. The sufferers were the lowest rung of the people, the lowest rung of the society. So again, one needs to see that there has to be proper alignment between the principal and agent, in order to avoid the misaligned alignment of policies and goals, or of policy impact and output. Again, when we look at the causes, or when we look at environmental policy, see, in terms of infrastructural policy, social policy, health policy, we can make the goal, or we can make the impact or output very tangible. Because in health policy, you can always say that we want maternal mortality rate reduced by half. We want child mortality rate reduced by half after 30 years. In education policy, you can always say we want literacy rate up by 30%. But in environmental policy, you can never say that I want air quality up by this much by this, these many years, unless you do the work. Plant more trees, green technology. Environmental policy require a different approach. They require a community-based approach. Your government might have the most amazing policy on how to curb air pollution, but if people are unwilling to follow, they still are unwilling to use a cleaner technology, or clean gas, and are unwilling to use electrical cars, then these policies will fall flat. So know this, that in terms of environmental policies, a huge amount of patience and community cooperation is absolutely necessary. Again, correlation is not causation. So if your government tends to believe planting 50 trees or having a tree planting drive will make sure that cleaner air, no. If your government tends to believe that, all right, we'll issue an order that you drive on this day and you drive on that day, odd and even scheme, and that will take care of the cleaner air or reducing the temperature, that's not going to work. So make sure that correlations that you're making, is not confused with the fact that that correlation is the cause, which will make sure my policy is success. In education policy, you can make those kind of correlation. We will open more schools, we will hire more teachers, students enrollment rate will go up, and hence literacy rate will take care of itself. But in environmental policy, you cannot make that correlation and causation mistake. Right? Of course, inadequate regulation, corruption, self-explanatory. What are the gaps in policy implementation? Again, coordination failure, and again, when we talk about coordination failure, I'm not talking about the miscommunication between people and political representatives, but also coordination failure among different departments, different ministries, different sub-departments within a particular ministry, and so on and so forth. And also, uh, did we make any mistake while establishing or assessing a counterfactual, or did we make any mistake, or did we leave any room for reassessment, or are we completely committed to the blueprint? One aspect that comes to my mind of a not so fortunate policy decision is in India, if you've seen the BRT corridor. Now, the BRT corridor was constructed because, that time, Sheila Dikshit government thought that, once we construct a dedicated bus rapid transit corridor, people will be more inclined to use public transport and things like that. But that did not work very well. Public transport do not provide the same level of comfort. If you were, let's say, if you were to take a bus, and there is a possibility that you may not be riding in an AC bus in case you need to change buses throughout the length and breadth of your journey. You might switch. There could be a possibility that it's heavily jam-packed. It's not a very good experience. But the same scenario, you'll be more willing to travel by metro. Metro is also equally jam-packed. People are standing very close, to each other. But there is AC, and you're comfortable. It's underground or above the ground, but you're comfortable. So know this for a fact that if the buses were if the public transport other than the metro was made equally comfortable, people would be willing to communicate using public transport system. In mega cities, yes. In New York, very few people use the car or the town car, But other than that, subway happens to be a very popular and a convenient mode of transportation. Same goes for Mumbai, So then again, there are certain gaps in policy implementation that we need to review and we need to ask, and particularly when it comes to environmental policy, because maybe one particular decision may not immediately lead to transformation or betterment in your ecological system, but it might be an initial or a very important start for you to get there, right? Possibility of elite capture. Now, understand this. This is the month of October. Diwali has just gone by. You are in Delhi. You cannot see anything. It's smoggy. You can't breathe. But your friend who decided to visit his grandparents in his village is very happy posting selfies on Instagram, clean air, can see the sun, can see the moon, stars and everything. While you're in Delhi, you can't even see your neighbor outside your balcony because it's so smoggy. Now, who is the elite in this particular section? Your friend who decided to leave Delhi because he had family in the village, he can enjoy himself and he has access to a better health condition, much, much better health condition than you are, So many times there is, with any development policy or any new policy, in the initial phases, every policy goes through something called an elite capture. In the sense, when odd even scheme came, families which had 2 cars, or they decided to buy another car, they took, and they had 2 different registration numbers. One was odd and one was even, right? So this is an example of an elite capture. They were able to ride the cars, they were able to use their own transport, they did not rely on public transport, and they were able to circumvent around the system, right? So every policy goes through a phase of elite capture, but make sure that after that particular phase of elite capture, the benefits get percolated down to the masses as well. Otherwise, we will find that there will be continued and increasing gaps between policy implementation and what was promised to you. The first speaker of this session, she talked about the economic investment in cleaner and a greener technology. But understand this, if private sector decides to invest heavily in a cleaner and a greener technology, they will thus market the technology in a similar way because private sector is here to do business. So that brings us to a very essential or a very crucial question. Should government do business? So the government needs to understand and define what public good is and what other externalities are, like education, public health. These are public goods. Is environment a public good? has your government identified that environment will be a public good? Because if your government says environment, clean environment is public good, is a part of public good, then the government will take active measures to make sure you have access to clean environment. If your government passes that clean air is your basic fundamental right, like free education, or, it's a basic right, then state governments, local governments, central government will actively go in, and make an effort in providing you with clean air and clean atmosphere. So understand this, that how do you define, like in management, it's always tricky, and it's a very smart way to put your need as somebody else's necessity. So if I'm, let's say, I'm into advertising, I have to make sure that, and I'm selling this particular pen, so I have to make sure that I project this pen in a certain way that your life is incomplete without this pen. Similarly, does your government think that your life is incomplete without clearer air or a cooler environment? Because if it does, then you will see those kind of policy, those kind of decisions being transformed into sound policies, right? And then, the SDG, the MDG, everybody has discussed about making sure the environment and ecology and eco-environment very sustainable. But understand, sustainability will come with a cost. We are a developing nation. Look what happened to Sri Lanka in the name of sustainability. They went for organic farming and they paid a heavy price. Understand this. India wants development, but India wants economic development before ecological development. But do you have the time? West could afford economic development over ecological development, and now they are focusing on ecological and environmental development. But do you have that kind of time? As a nation, we need to ask ourselves, kya hamare paas itna waqt hai? So this particular heat wave, this year, what we experienced and what other nations are experiencing, we need to understand, and we need to be aware of the fact that this is an onset of something new. This particular think tank has been very forward in establishing and organizing a dedicated heat wave training program, because we've, in terms of disaster which afflict, natural disaster which afflict the subcontinent of India, we know about cyclones, we know about floods. Heat wave is new and it is here to stay. Why? Because your planet is warming. So environmental policy mimicking and addressing these crucial aspects of this particular hazard. Currently, it's a hazard, but it has a very high potential of turning into a disaster, and this is where we need effective policies to stop and take care of the environment and our people. So with this, I will stop, and I hope you enjoy the presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Paswan, for this very interesting presentation. Now I would request Tikender ji, if you want to add some words to ma'am's presentation.
How many Q&As do we have, Dr. Solvi?
So we have around 3 to 4 questions, 3 to 4
Okay.
relevant questions.
So I just want to make some general observations. So thank you, Dr. Pooja, for accepting this offer and making this. Probably this is our last presentation, isn't it, Dr. Solvi?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, great. So thank you so much. When you were speaking about the ice age and the warming period, there's a very interesting book written by Tony Joseph, Who We Are. And there, one of the arguments that is being pushed by some of the scientists is that we as human beings, we all know what climate science is, and we have those IPCC reports which are screaming at us, but they say we are like too small to really, affect Mother Nature. Somehow I draw some of the observations from it, but that doesn't mean, even if that is true, but that doesn't mean that we have the right to jeopardize and to ruin the way we are ruining the present before us, and of course the future. Having said that, I think there's another very interesting point that you've raised, and that is about what should be the priority? Should the priority be economic development, or should the priority be increasing the ecological footprint? I think there is dialectics in that. It's not that we can't do both. The point is, I mean, what many of the speakers have pointed out, that how do you do that? What is the approach? What are the processes? And as you have also pointed out, the processes must include going back to the people, just engaging them with all these, after all, they are part and parcel of the policy paradigm as well, because it is they who must be linked to that. And there's very interesting work by Jan Makak, who wrote almost 60 years ago, called Planning with Nature. The point is, are we doing that? And the philosophers who pointed out that it's not restoration, it has to be restitution. And they have also gone into the details of pointing out that, look, it's basically the drive of industrial capitalism to what they point out to be the fourth stage of capitalist revolution. I mean, the age of artificial intelligence, or Internet of Things and whatnot. But they want mobility of the people, and it is actually that key which leads to this large kind of displacement that is also taking place. So I think not just to restrict to some of the core elements of climate science, but to move beyond that. I think what is important is that if we just talk about the dialectics, then that is something that we can actually work out with some of the sustainable solutions. For example, this is what we are doing in Leh, where instead of the RCC, and there's inverse. There's no heat wave. There's the cold waves. We get chill brings there. So with, of course, earthen material, and I don't know, because one of our previous speakers, Dr. was saying about, ancient. How ancient do we go? Because ancient means also Harappan civilization. In fact, I'm writing a longish essay on that, right from the Harappas to the modern smart cities. So I think let's not just brush that aside. My point is that either this or that, but let's try to bring in a kind of dialectics that we can have economic development, and this leads to whether we should focus on mitigation or on adaptive strategies, because this is what we've been screaming right from our common but differential responsibility that we've been asking and you spoke a lot about technological transfer. $100 billion were committed by the global north. I was there in Paris during climate change talks, but we know not even 20% have been passed through. So that also is a reality. But also, I mean, do we just focus on adaptive strategies and not on our own mitigation strategies? Also, I think it requires more debate, more discussion, but not to lose the point. So with that, I think we can just move to Q&As. But it's been a fascinating presentation also, because you brought to light some of the very practical experiences. And just to share one very funny anecdote, Pooja, with you. And that pertains to when you were pointing out at the BRT corridor in Delhi. Okay? So there was this conference organized by the DOSH and the London School of Economics. I was also a speaker. In fact, Professor Banerjee, who got the Nobel Prize recently, he and I were in the same panel. So we were discussing about urban futures and whatnot. And I remember there was another panel which comprised the former Chief Minister of Delhi, Sheila Dixit, who had just lost at that time, and of course the Mayor of Bogota. And the Mayor of Bogota said, "Look, what a fascinating thing that you did. You brought in the BRT, and Bogota has experimented lots of these things. Then why did you actually move back? Why did you not continue?" She said, there was lots of pressure. I mean, something that you were actually pointing out, the elite and that stuff. And then, but he was a clever man, and he'd done all his homework very well. And he said, "Look, I have the statistics and the figure. Do you know how many people at that time," he said, "own cars in Delhi?" So the pressure came from the car owners, actually, the middle class and the upper middle classes, and not more than 15 or 16%, which means 84% of the people is not people for the policy framers, but these 16% who are very vocal, very vociferous in raising their voices are actually dominating the policy paradigm. And we see still, I mean, even with this government, I mean, which experiment, they also know because they lose a lot. So having said that, I think it's something very important. I mean, how do you break this? I mean, how do you bring this major disruption? And we've seen, I mean, after that, we've been seeing flyovers and whatnot. These are not sustainable ways. So therefore, that's what I say. I mean, there can be a balance. But the point is, how are we engaging the people? Where are the people's voices? Why are the people not demanding more cycle tracks? Why are we not witnessing demand for more pedestrianization? As you said, in New York, the walkways. I mean, why can't we have those walkways right underneath the earth, or maybe a little cover over the head? So I think overall it's very fascinating. And so 14% people decide for the 86%, not even that, even 1%. But yeah, that's how the policy, and we got rid of the RT. I mean, there were some problems, hiccups, but I think those hiccups could have easily. So overall, thank you so much, Pooja, and I think we can just jump to Dr. Survi to the questions.
Thank you, sir, for your insightful comments. Ma'am, I'll just read out the questions to you. The first question is by Kishorji, and the question is, how effective is India's disaster management authority? Are the policy designs which are in place are enough to manage disasters properly? What, in your opinion, the policy design should be?
Okay. Thank you, Survi. India's disaster management policy, if you look at the National Disaster Management Act 2005-15, and it's all on the website, and the National Disaster Management Plan, institutionally, it's one of the most comprehensive, well laid out institutionally, with the right heads, right departments being involved in, et cetera, et cetera. You read the National Disaster Management Act, very well laid out. But in terms of practicability, in terms of implementation, it's then again state-specific, sector-specific. For example, in the case of Orissa cyclone, the tropical cyclone which the particular state experiences every year, it has been very well managed by the state of Orissa. When it comes to landslides, when it comes to cloudburst in hilly regions, the state government of Himachal, the state government of Uttarakhand, they tend to have their own disaster management team, state disaster management team, which is very specific or reorients itself in providing relief and mitigation. So it's again sector-wise, but disaster management, like I said, is incomplete without a strong community participation. So when it comes to community participation, we as people have to become more aware. We have to be more aware, or we have to have a sense of community engagement, that in case there is an accident on the road or there is a calamity, we will not hesitate in providing relief, instead of running away. That culture needs to be ingrained. So institutionally, we are very sound. State-wise, we have mastered, and we are still working towards providing effective relief, but still there is a long way to go in terms of social engagement. There's a huge lacuna. So we need to build our capacity on that particular area.
Another question is by Ipshita ji. The question is, how easy or difficult it would be for policymakers to separate the value from the fact in designing environmentally sustainable schemes and policies? Shouldn't there be a kind of integration between value and fact in policy? For example, during Chipko movement, the aim was not just to achieve ecological sustenance, but also it stemmed from the fact that the resisting communities considered trees and forests as living that had to be protected from being destroyed. So there must be a conscious raising too.
Okay, very good question, Ipshita. See, when we talk about value and fact dichotomy, this is the most idealistic scenario. But achieving a full value fact dichotomy is nearly impossible. Why? Because as human beings, we can never be unbiased. You will always have a natural bias towards something. So put yourself in a position of, as an MP of your district, and think of your state, and think that in your constituency, it's not that 100% people from your constituency supported your candidature. Maybe you won by, let's say, 51% or 74%. Having said that, you would like a re-election. You would want to come back to power again. And if coming back to power and a re-election are your set goals, then you're very flexible on values and facts. You become very flexible on attaching certain values to already established facts. Facts don't change. Facts nahi badalte. It's hot. There is a heat wave. Why? Because the temperature has exceeded a certain degree Celsius, and hence you are having a heat wave. There is an orange alert. Why? Because the rainfall has exceeded certain and there is a rainfall, and there is a possibility of a potential hazard turning into a disaster. So facts don't change. But if my goals are somewhere else other than development of my people, or an unshakable commitment to establishing a very sound disaster management infrastructure, then my value and fact will not change much. But if I want a re-election, then I will attribute any fact, any value I want to the existing fact. So for politicians, then again, a huge credit is given to Naveen Patnaik's government in Odisha, because of the way how he handled how he handles the tropical cyclone every year. But there is no undeniability that that particular action does not contribute to his re-election. We cannot forget that during the Hurricane Katrina, Obama administration which was basically dwindling in terms of popularity rating, suddenly found its rating to be higher, and Katrina basically secured a second term for Obama. So in that particular slide, when I discussed the strategic triangle, political supportability, organizational implementability, very complicated word, but know this, that all the three factors have to, coincide in order for a policy to even see the light of the day. If your politician does not feel that disaster management is important, aega disaster to dekh lenge kaun sa roz aata, etc. If they have that kind of narrative, then your disaster management effort in your state will suffer. But if as people you're very conscious, no, it is very important for me to have a strong disaster management approach in my district, in my area where I'm prone to flood, where I'm prone to drought, where I'm prone to heat wave, where I'm prone to tropical cyclones, where I'm prone to landslide. Pick your disaster. This is a subcontinent. But having said that, if it is very important for me to be safe from a disaster, then my political the machinery does reflect. So again, community engagement. As people, you have to voice your priority that environmental disaster management, environmental protection is a priority. It matters.
Surbi Palji is asking how to bring agendas like climate resilience policies into mainstream politics.
Thank you, Surabhi. Again, through dialogue, through engagements. Like I said, this is the first conference or a training program on heat wave, dedicated heat wave. I mean, it could have been on disaster management. It could have been on any broad topic. But when I shared the particular flyer for this event, my colleagues in the US outside, they were pretty impressed that, here is a think tank which is focusing or trying to create a dialogue or discussion around a very area specific disaster problem. So a natural disaster. Heat wave is a natural phenomenon, but it's occurring in those regions which are highly populated, have a high population density, larger migration, a large number of migrants, less access to public health care, which is leading to a higher casualty or a higher mortality. So that's why that particular natural phenomenon is turning into a disaster. How do you bring this into agenda? Write more, read more, bring this into a mainstream discussion. Your mainstream political agenda is basically a mainstream public discussion. So discuss this more openly, discuss this among forums, and then you will have a percolation or a transfusion of information from public to representatives.
Ma'am, another question is by Prakash Ji, and the question is, what could we do to build capacity in terms of awareness about heat waves, and what can our education system do to equip masses right from our classrooms?
Again, making actively engaging curriculum, having earthquake drills or having disaster management drills repeatedly, so that these habits are ingrained into people's subconscious. So The example which I'm about to give is a very sad example, but now in US schools, because there have been mass shooting in US schools, the children are taught that if you hear this kind of a sound, or if you hear somebody saying get down or pointing a gun, you are supposed to lie flat on the floor and cover your head. You know, this should not be a part of your engagement. Just ask any school kid, what will you do when if an earthquake strikes? We will go out of the classroom, but you will not run, you will walk. You know, you will exit the building. These aspects are known to us. What if you're trapped in a building? You know, you cannot move. You will find a corner where the walls join together, and you will seek shelter in that particular corner, or under a table or something. So these, how is this particular knowledge readily in my subconscious mind? Because I have been exposed to this particular knowledge or drill repeatedly over and over again. So how do you make citizen aware? By making sure that that information or that knowledge is always in the line of sight. So today, very simple, if I hum the lyrics of this very popular jingle, school chale hum. So, I can sing one paragraph and suddenly you will hear the jingle or the melody or the tune, because this is ingrained in your subconscious. So imagine if Doordarshan or any news channel or Netflix, they have these recurring, warnings, like during Corona period, and every time you used to call somebody, so there used to be a warning, mask pehen ke nikliye, duri banaye rakhe, and social distancing. So during the time of a disaster, or when a disaster might possibly strike, you have these warnings being issued. Stay hydrated, carry an ORS packet with you, and things like that. So this is the way you make sure that good disaster management practices are ingrained in the subconscious mind of your citizen. So they know exactly what to do, and they know exactly how to keep themselves safe and their loved ones safe. So making sure the information is in the line of sight. Yeah.
Thank you so much, ma'am. With this, we come an end of the question and answer round. And I would like to thank Dr. Paswan once again for being with us and indulging such a lively discussion with the participants and imparting us a lot of knowledge on the policies related to heat waves. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me.
So that was the end of the last session for third day training program. Now I would like to invite our course moderator and convener, Shri Tikender ji, to conclude the session with some words. So over to you.
Some connection issues, or
Okay.
we can go ahead with vote of thanks
Vote
and
of thanks.
the announcement.
Okay.
Yes.
As we come to end of our online immersive online training certificate program on understanding recurring heat waves, risk, impact, and the way forward for resilience, I, Sauravi Ghimire, researcher at IMPRI, Impact and Policy Research Institute, would like to propose the formal vote of thanks on behalf of IMPRI and NIDM. This training course is organized by National Institute of Disaster Management, Ministry of Home Affairs, and IMPRI, Center for Environment, Climate Change and Sustainable Development, or CECCSD, IMPRI, Impact and Policy Research Institute. We thank the patron for the program, Shri Taj Hassan, convener and moderator, Shri Tikender Singh Panwar, our conveners, Professor Dr. Anil K. Gupta, Dr. Simi Mehta, and Dr. Soumyadip Chattopadhyay. We are very grateful to all our expert trainers, Shri Himanshu Shekhar Mishra, Dr. Naresh Kumar, Professor Joyshri Roy, Dr. Gulrez Shah Azhar, Shri Anup Kumar Srivastava, Dr. May Matthew, Dr. Manu Gupta, and Dr. Pooja Paswan. The certificates will be available after 2 working days from the NIDM portal event page after the submission of the feedback forms. We thank all of our participants who have raised pertinent questions and who are actively involved in this 3-day training program. Thank you for being interested and putting your time, energy, and efforts in understanding emerging issues concerning the impacts of policies in disaster management and helping us to bring together the practitioners and participants through this course, which we believe might have led to a very fruitful outcome. I would like to thank the organizing team of IMPRI and NIDM for conducting the whole session in such a smooth manner. We thank all those who are watching us live on Facebook, YouTube, listening to our podcast, or reading our publications. We hope you continue to join in future to our IMPRI Web Policy Talk and Web Policy Learning. Have a nice day and thank you.